2 Corinthians 4. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. For we preach not ourselves, but Christ Jesus the Lord, and ourselves your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. For we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, cast down, but not destroyed, always bearing about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our body. For we which live are always delivered unto death for Jesus' sake, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our mortal flesh. So then death worketh in us, but life in you. We having the same spirit of faith, according as it is written, I believed, and therefore have I spoken. We also believe, and therefore speak, knowing that he which raised up the Lord Jesus shall raise up us also by Jesus, and shall present us with you. For all things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace might, through the thanksgiving of many, redound to the glory of God. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. For we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal.
Amen. Hope everybody's having a good Monday. It is Monday, August 25th, 2014. And that was 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Hope everybody's doing pretty good. Hanging in there at least. That's about all we can expect these days, huh? Alright, well, I got quite a bit of stuff for you. So without further ado, I'm not going to take a lot of time to get into it. We're going to go ahead and go right in to get to suspicious observers, because I have like I say, I have a ton of different news for you. A lot of real interesting stuff tonight, so please hang with us. So without further ado, let's get on with suspicious observers.
Good morning, folks. Let's look back 9 days ago. Major lull in quake activity, but we looked at the coming coronal holes in planetary geometry and called 2 uptick periods. The first was just 2 days later when Iran took a couple significant tremors in a 36-hour period, and during that time the Iceland volcano went on alert as well. They've actually taken the alert level back down to orange, even though larger seismicity prevails in the area. In fact, we've also got alerts issued at Hekla, so that's 2 volcanoes on watch there. Then, after a few days in between watches, we identified the next coronal holes, and that they would arrive on the 24th or 25th of August. Around the same time the new moon was coming, Mars was conjoining Saturn in the evening sky, which is absolutely beautiful if you get a chance to go outside and see it. And also, kind of a double conjunction as Earth sits between opposing bodies of Neptune and Mercury, followed by the opposition of Neptune and the Sun. First, Chile went off 12 hours earlier than expected with a mid-6 range rumble. Then, yesterday, California started the enhanced watch period with a 6-pointer that caused fires, structural damage, and more than 100 injuries. Then later last night, a magnitude 7 earthquake struck what is thankfully a very low population area of Peru. Let's hope that's all the pressure we need to release. Solar wind is as calm as it comes. Speed way below 300 kilometers per second, as though our sun was taking low, shallow breaths. Look at how smooth the electron flux has become because of it. But there ends the calm. An M5.9 solar flare erupted from a new sunspot region on the southern hemisphere. It is truly fantastic to watch the ejecta leave the sun there. Helio Viewer is lagging as of 5 a.m. Eastern Time, so we're using the SDO page and ISWA for the most part here. The Enlil spiral shows the CME will miss Earth by a good margin, which can also be seen on the Soho-Lascaux coronagraphs. Main ejecta heading well behind Earth's orbital position. If anything, one of the simultaneous eruptions would have a better chance of being geo-effective, but they were very small. Speaking of those coronal holes, you can see they've got some force associated with them. It was just in the last 24 to 36 hours that the blue coronal fields really opened up and allowed those openings to become geo-effective. Then, we're looking to sunspots for more flare danger. The departing group up north has done well to develop the southern positive blue match, but they've been flaring less the last day. The incoming northern groups have a gamma class due to how spread the magnetics are, but the umbras are small, and we'd really like to see them mixing a lot more than that. Finally, the big guns down south don't really look like they should have fired an M flare. Perhaps it was a rapid decay event subsequent to the eruption, or the fact that it's turning in to face Earth. So, the news has been talking about the Japan landslides a lot, but the Indian landslide woes are equally bad, not getting the press. A village lies buried beneath the mud and wood here. They are mostly finding bodies at this point. Survivors' chances are dwindling. This would be funny if it weren't so damn true. We should all remember how NOAA and NASA were caught altering climate data and how the mainstream media barely touched the topic. Now we're hearing that such funny business occurred within the Australian BOM as well. In government we trust, eh? Let's look at the tropical development. Cristobal has been named in the Atlantic, and the models now unanimously show a trek due north and a swing to the east thereafter. Meanwhile, the Pacific, we've still got storms, plural, with Major Hurricane Marie leading the way in terms of power. She won't make official landfall, but ask the Mexican coastlines and the shear zones if they can tell the difference. Meanwhile, another strong low is due north of that on the U.S.-Canada border, just east of where I'll be crossing today. It is driving a great deal of heat and moisture to the area from two different places. Combining the relative humidity with the precipitable water overlay gives you an idea of where the weather is heading tonight. Still mostly high pressure down under, but our one low just between nations actually has its trailing convergence set to make a little action in eastern Australia tonight. Nothing major. Meanwhile, that main low in Europe has moved inland and east while a new system creeps in towards Ireland, Scotland, and England. You can see the areas of note for each of those lows right now. As I mentioned, Mobile Observatory Project heads into Western Canada today. Be there about a week, and then we're coming to Seattle. Got the rest of the world's storm zones and shots of our star to close. It's 6:35 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:35 a.m. Mountain Time, and that's the news. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
And a big thanks, Ben Davidson. Like always, the link to the actual video is down in the About tab. Got another video for you that has to do with the same type of subject, and it's by BP Earthwatch. And it's covering pretty much the same thing, except he includes a little more detailed information and images and stuff from the CME that's not necessarily directly Earth-facing, but it will affect us. It will put it, and it already has put a lot of pressure on our shields. Having a rough day speaking, so bear with me. Let's go ahead and see what BP Earthwatch has to say, and just like Suspicious Observers, the link is down in the About tab, so enjoy.
August 25th, 2014. This is our sunspot summary. This is today's from NOAA and the U.S. Air Force, but sunspot 2149 is now beta, gamma, delta. That means it's more capable of X flares. As a matter of fact, it went from a 1% to a 10% chance overnight. This is the proton chart as this crossed the ACE satellites, guys, at 0300. It has not reached Earth yet. Let's look at 3 days from the Earth-facing LASCO C2 images. You'll see the flare from yesterday. Very impressive. Something I've never seen before. As this flare goes out, the magnetic lines of force that are surrounding the sun are being bent backwards, almost like a bow shot, guys. It's really strange, but notice that area. I've never seen a coronal mass ejection that got that far away from the surface of the sun and then was pulled back in. But I'm going to show you some images from the SDO, and you can see kind of what's happening. But watch this. Let's back it up. We'll go through it step by step. Now that top section of this mass, and again it's a coronal mass ejection, the surface of the sun was ejected off the surface after a very strong flare, but this section, watch it. Never before have I seen one get that far away from the surface of the sun, check this out, and be pulled back. Look at that. It's amazing. But what may be happening is that we're having some type of influence on the sun, guys. I'm not sure what it is. It's coming in from the left side if you are Earth-facing. Now, you can't see all the magnetic lines of force here, but I will show you those in just a moment. We'll go through these images. Now, this is the flare from yesterday, and this is the new one from this morning that we're looking at that was just bulging out the right side of the LASCO C2 red camera. Now let's look at the SDO Earth facing also. There's going to be two events there. These are the new ones. Doesn't look like much, but there was a tremendous amount of energy as it comes back around. Check it out. Now on the left side is where the large flare from yesterday came out. Also the coronal mass ejection, and as a filament was charged in the bottom left corner. So we've actually had 4 strong events in the last 24 hours. The quakes are going to continue. Check this out. There's the 5. I think it was a 5.6 or 5.7. Then that charge, that filament, look at that. But whatever is affecting the sun is supercharging it also. It's not just causing almost a bow shock effect. But again, we'll go to the J. Helioviewer and some of the SDO images, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Look at that amount of material that was blasted from the surface of the sun. Now check this out. It's amazing images. What happens is you'll see the flare. that hits the bottom of a small filament, and it pulls it like something caught in a giant magnetic net away from the surface of the sun. There's a flare, coronal mass ejection. Now, and this image is closer, and you can't see it being pulled back out like we did in the LASCO C2. But these are amazing in themselves, that much energy. And guys, to scale, it would take, if you took the Earth and a picture of it and placed it beside a picture of the sun to scale, it would take 109 Earths to go across this solar view right there. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this magnetic bow shock to the left of the sun. Notice the other coners. That's what we normally see unless there's a coronal mass ejection or something. But look at this bend back and the tremendous size. They're harder to see in this inverted filter, but they're there. And it's a group of about 4 areas of the sun that are sending these magnetic lines out, and they're all being caught and swept back. Look at that. Never, again, that has to do with that coronal mass ejection coming back to the sun that I showed you at first. Once I saw these images, I realized that was picked up into this flow. But there's a, right when we thought we were going to start maybe into a solar minimum, the sun was dying down for a few weeks. It's kicking hard right now, and it's going to definitely, guys, affect these earthquakes. After I was on the road yesterday, I did a earthquake warning video. Then that 7.0 came out that hit down in South America, and they downgraded it to a 6.9 as this morning. But in Iceland, there's been back-to-back 5.0s in the last 24 hours. Now, they had went from an orange alert level at the volcano there to a red alert level because of the 2 5s. Remember, it started out with 2-point quakes and then went into the 3s and then the 4s, and it was calm a couple of days. Here's your California 6.0 quake, guys. That hit hard, and it was not deep, and that's why they had so much shaking, and that's why it went to a pager red alert as far as violence. If you see that when you pull up an earthquake, you know that it's a lot of damage done, and those guys there have had power lines, water lines broken. They're talking about maybe a week or so before some people get electricity. And down all, this is basically the eastern ring of fire. But up here in Iceland, this thing is under a glacier. Now, the reason it went to a level 5 or red yesterday is because of the 2 5.0 earthquakes. But they're all along the middle of the earth. And look at the bottom. You see Iceland in the red dot, but follow that all the way to the bottom of the earth. See that the bottom of the earth is being compressed also by these flares. We're getting it both there in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and Eastern Ring of Fire. But this is the updates as of yesterday. I haven't found a newer one from Iceland, but they're saying that 2 earthquakes greater than 5 in magnitude shook the area near the Bonda volcano on Sunday, making the strongest quakes to hit the region in recent days. They had collected the information on Saturday, and they were confirming a subglacial eruption of lava is in progress, but they had not seen it break the surface yet, as that's catastrophic damage to all their dams that are hydroelectric along those rivers and all, because this will re-landscape even where the rivers run if this thing busts loose. Also, if it creates the ash cloud, it can change, of course, all the airline flights. But not only that, it heats the ocean, and it causes, because of the iron oxide in this ash, can cause algae blooms, and very, very large algae blooms. But this, guys, is the latest LASCO C2. I went back and looked right before I ended the video, and it was just bulging out the right side. So you see now, it's not included in the movies yet, but this last image shows you how strong from the right side of the sun. And this one is Earth-facing more than the last one because it's not all the way to the right. It's in the bottom right quadrant and up that side. So something has energized the sun. We've seen that in what is happening, guys. I was on the road yesterday and went through some pretty rough weather, extreme lightning and almost hurricane force winds. I was down near the Pensacola Naval Air Station, and to me, some of the gust and the people were running, and boats were, I think a couple of boats sank, fire trucks were going everywhere, and the lightning was extremely powerful. And what's happening, this increased solar activity is energizing our atmosphere, and it's transferring to the ground as a ground, just like any electrical spark does. And so as long as we're seeing the sun do this, you're going to see earthquakes and these powerful storms and heat. But just heads up, guys, I'm going to be back on the road for a couple of days, but I'm going to stay in touch. Be safe.
Thanks to BP Earth Watch for a great update. He covered a lot of the things that I seen and was going to cover. He did a great job going into detail on the earthquakes, the CME, the volcanoes, and in the end there he included a little bit about how the sun affects all of those things, and that's pretty important to know. The sun has been acting really strange, and a lot of us that's been kind of keeping an eye on it have seen just how it's just not right. It's not normal. In one sense, it's very quiet, but in another sense, it's kind of erratic, and it just seems like there's something affecting it that I don't know if anyone has really figured out what it is, but it's just acting very, very strange. It's something to keep an eye on, because of course, if we get an Earth-directed CME, we're going to be in some pretty deep trouble. If it's a CME of I forget, Delta. If it's a Delta CME, we're going to be in trouble. We could see the Carrington event happen all over again, and of course, in today's society, that would be rather devastating. Put us back in the Stone Age, no doubt about that. Okay, so now for my news. The first story I'll cover, and then I'll show you a little trick after that. From money.msn, 5 states running out of water. The most severe drought in recent years is destroying crops and threatening to empty reservoirs in these states. And this is something that came out, everybody's paying attention to Ferguson and ISIS and all kinds of things that's going on, and we kind of forgot to pay attention to the drought situation. Extreme drought leads to extreme measures. The United States is currently experiencing one of the worst droughts in memory. More than 30% of the country was experiencing at least moderate drought last month. In 7 states, drought conditions were so severe that each had more than half of its land area in severe drought. Severe drought is characterized by crop loss, frequent water shortages, and mandatory water use restrictions. Based on data from the U.S. Drought Monitor through May 13th, 24/7, Wall Street reviewed the states with the highest levels of severe drought. In an interview with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I'll get it right, meteorologist Brad Rippey told 24/7 Wall Street that drought has been a long-running issue in parts of the country. This drought has dragged on for 3.5 years in some areas, particularly in North Texas, Rippey said. While large portions of 7 states suffer from severe drought, in some parts of these states, drought conditions are even worse. In 6 of the 7 states with the highest levels of drought, more than 30% of each state was in extreme drought as of May 13th, as well as suffering from widespread water shortages. Additionally, in California and Oklahoma, 25 and 30% of the states respectively suffered from exceptional drought, the highest severity of classification. Under exceptional drought, crop and pasture loss is widespread, and shortages of well and reservoir water can lead to water emergencies. Drought has had a major impact on important crops such as winter wheat. So much of the winter wheat is grown across the southern half of the Great Plains, Rippey said, in an area that includes 3 of the hardest hit states. The Southwest concerns are less focused on agriculture and more on reservoir levels, Rippey said. The U.S. Drought Monitor is produced by the USDA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. 24/7 Wall Street reviewed the 7 states with the highest proportion of total area classified in at least a state of severe drought as of May 13, 2014. Also reviewed were figures recently published by the USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service as part of its 2012 Census of Agriculture. Something we need to keep an eye on. The sad thing is we have major corporations like Nestle and others that are moving in, and other entities, countries and stuff that's buying up our water resources, whether it be they bottle up the water and sell it, or what the case may be, we are in severe water trouble. We just are. Something to really keep an eye on, just as much as the sun and everything else going on, because it's not going to be too long. If it keeps up with the natural conditions, the man-made conditions, and the greed, we're going to be hurting for simple things as water. And as most of you already know, most everywhere, we can't collect water. Rainwater collection is illegal. It's actually absolutely absurd. So I wanted to cover something. Since we had this story, I wanted to talk about something. I went over with you guys on a basic charcoal water filter. Just in case something would happen, you would need to be able to filter your own water. And I went over on several different shows. I talked about this basic little simple charcoal water filter. And I think I had mentioned this one. I happened to run across it on Facebook, so I thought, well, you know, I've got a story about water. I'm going to include it in today's show. So this, as soon as it loads, a cheap, promising way to filter water through a twig. You got that right. So anyway, you basically, I'll read the article. I believe they explain it all in the article, but you can see the pictures there. It says how to make a xylem filter. One way to avoid getting sick while traveling is to only eat fruit that you peel yourself. Since plants can filter out bacteria and prevent it from traveling throughout their tissues, well, why not apply this principle to filtering the water directly? A team of scientists have done just that, testing how well pine wood filtered water with its xylem, the tube-like tissue that transports water from the plant roots to leaves. The results published last week in the journal PLOS1 were very promising. Filtration using 3 different xylem filters showed nearly complete rejection of the bacteria, catching at least 99.9% of them, the authors wrote. The xylem filters used in the study appeared to catch nearly all particles larger than 100 nanometers in diameter, meaning they would exclude protozoa like Giardia as well. Smaller viruses would be expected to pass through, but research suggests that other types of wood with smaller pores could possibly be used to filter out these pathogens as well. Pine was used in this experiment since a larger percentage of its cross-section is made up of xylem, making it a more feasible choice for a prototype. To make a filter, all you need to do is peel the bark off a pine twig and stick it into a tube, sealing holes between the twig and tube with epoxy. Then the pressure must be optimized, which is a little bit trickier. But once that's worked out, each twig filter processes 4 liters of water per day, enough for one person. The particles are filtered out in the wood's pits. The sieve-like holes between adjacent tube-like conduits of xylem, the pit's nanoscale pores, perform the critical function of preventing bubbles from crossing over to the conduit from one conduit to another, allowing water to flow from the ground to the leaves and live plants, but also filtering out bacteria for us humans. Fresh wood appears to filter material much better than dead wood. The simple construction of xylem filters combined with their fabrication from an inexpensive, biodegradable, and disposable material suggests that further research and development of xylem filters could potentially lead to their widespread use and greatly reduce the incidence of waterborne infectious disease in the world, the authors conclude. So it's just a simple filter. As you can see, you just peel the bark off of a branch, stick it in a tube. You have a clamp, I'm sure that helps. And it's just a simple little water filter if you ever get stuck out in the sticks, pun intended. And it'd be a good way to filter your water if you don't have access to charcoal, sand, small pebbles, and an empty bottle. So anyway, I thought I would cover another way to filter water, since being able to have clean water is such an important thing in a survival situation. Okay, so let's get on to the actual first story, well, second story, I guess, that I have. This comes from Breitbart, and it's something to pay attention to. And as soon as the video loads, I'll play the video. Maybe.
ultimately provide for its own security.
Joining us now, Fox News military analyst, Lieutenant General Tom McInerney. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here again.
Thanks very much, Elma.
What's going on here? We have not only Chuck Hagel, but also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, also saying that open borders and immigration issues have made foreigners who have joined ISIS an immediate threat to the U.S. and its allies domestically. He's even saying we need to take this fight into Syria, yet you have the president saying ISIS needs to be contained in Iraq. Why are military leaders speaking what seems to be a different language than the president?
Well, there's a huge narrative gap, Uma. The president thinks everything's okay. The narrative that he won re-election, Al-Qaeda is dead, he killed Osama bin Laden, and all that. He's got the wrong narrative. He's 3 years behind. The fact is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense, Hagel, on Thursday, were pleading for us to start doing something. ISIS, unchecked, is an existential threat to the United States, and soon. I'm not talking 2 or 3 years from now. I'm talking very, very soon. And we need to take very aggressive corrective action. And the White House isn't. You've even got the Secretary of State, Kerry, who is saying that we must destroy ISIS. And we must immediately, I mean tomorrow, they need to start hitting 200 targets a day. The president has got to get with it. As Judge Janine says, he's got to put his big boy pants on and be the leader of the free world. You can't lead and destroy ISIS from leading from behind. And we've got to go after these targets. It's an easy air campaign, and it should be in Syria as well as it should be in Iraq. And it must be a very aggressive 24/7 campaign, and we've got to resupply directly to the Kurds. We are not supplying the Kurds very much because Maliki is holding it all up. And they are our best allies out there next to the Israelis.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of Syria, you know, the fact that 3 years of avoiding it and not making good on his line in the sand warning to Syria, he now may be pushed towards military action there to go after ISIS targets. What's the reality of that actually happening from your point of view? What are you hearing?
Well, if he doesn't, then we're going to lose. We ought to be attacking their command and control. On the 10th of March, al-Baghdadi went in a convoy of 30 vehicles from Mosul back into Syria because he was afraid of U.S. air power. We should have destroyed them then. Now we have to go in and take them out in Syria. And we ought to do anything that goes after ISIS in Syria and also support the Free Syrian Army, as well as attacking them in Iraq. And it's got to be an aggressive campaign. Let's not worry about that border.
I hear the urgency in your voice, and more people are saying that the ISIS threat is coming here to our own backyard. What are you hearing from your contacts?
Well, let me say this. On the 7th of September, a major news network and a major publishing network are going to put out a book, and it's going to be earth-shattering of what's happening and what happened. And the fact is, we may even see on 9/11/14 MH370 resurface again. We should be prepared for anything. We should go to DEFCON 1, which is our highest state of readiness, and be prepared as we lead up to 9/11.
When you say a major news organization is coming forward with a publication, what are you referring to specifically? Can you allude to that? Can you give us more details about what you're referring to?
I can't give you any more than what I've just said, but it is going to be extremely important, and America should take notice. We are less safe today than we were 6 years ago. Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, the director of DIA, who's retiring now, has pointed out that they have almost doubled the radical Islamic organizations in the last 6 years, and probably a 30% increase in the force structure.
So you're saying we should raise the terror level threat at this point ahead of the anniversary of 9/11?
Absolutely, Uma.
Well, that's very sobering, and obviously something we're going to obviously watch very carefully.
What bothers me with that story is that he uses the term DEFCON 1. Now, I've only ever heard the term DEFCON 1 being used. Of course, it is a state of readiness. It is the most heightened state of readiness. But I've only heard that term used when it comes to a nuclear, and I know I messed that word up, a nuclear situation. That's the only time I've ever heard that word used, and that level, or that, what do you want to call it, that scale. That's the only reference that I've ever heard that with. So that concerns me. I told you I can't talk today. That concerns me that that particular word, that particular scale, because you all know that we also have this terrorist alert status thing, you know, if we never keep the colors straight. But he didn't use that. Instead, he used the DEFCON scale. That is concerning. That is very, very concerning. Thought it was important that I bring that bit of information. Now we're going to go to the Earth, because there is a lot going on with the Earth right now. And considering that I am from the Midwest, I am going to start with the Midwest. And this is a bit of concerning information as well. I don't know if this is quite considered the Midwest. I'm not sure, but it's close enough. Holes open up in the New Madrid northern reaches. What's going on? At least 6 mysterious holes have opened up at Mount Baldy in Indiana, as shared in newly released video reports below. At this time, scientists do not know what is causing the holes to open up, and they've become an international sensation, as shared in the first video. While the RSOE EDIS is reporting this unusual event, those paying attention warn that the next time the New Madrid fault ruptures, this area would be where the U.S. splits in half, with Lake Michigan draining nearly 1/3 of its water and the Mississippi River widening to 20 to 30 miles. Mount Baldy sits directly on Lake Michigan, as shown in the screenshot below. Videos. It is the New Madrid awakening. The fourth video below from the destruction zone shares what another New Madrid rupture would bring us. If you were to draw a line from the Indianola, Indiana, Europa, and Indianola, Missouri, you will discover that they were right over the New Madrid fault. This semi-dormant fault, possibly associated with tremors in Illinois and Wisconsin, has the range and the depth that some say could literally split the U.S. in half, with the Mississippi widening 20 to 30 miles east and west from New Orleans to central Wisconsin. The scenario may involve the displacement of 1/3 of Lake Michigan water into the mix. This would leave Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, and the Mississippi Valley flooded, and dams along its path would breach, destroying New Orleans. Pretty sobering information. I figured we'd at least play the first video here, so you'd be able to get a little bit of a view of what's going on here.
Take a look at new video of those mysterious holes on Mount Baldy. Wow.
So far, scientists have found 6 of them, including the one that 6-year-old Nathan Weisner fell in last July. Rescuers found him alive more than 3 hours later, 11 feet beneath the surface.
Kelly Stopczynski tells us a team of scientists from the Indiana Geological Survey is now leading the research into what is causing those holes.
From the beginning, the National Park Service speculated dead trees created holes, and that's what happened when that little boy fell in last summer and survived. Scientists are still going with that theory, but now they're looking for the data to prove it.
So it's probably a relatively unique phenomenon.
This cone marks the spot on Mount Baldy where the 6-year-old fell in a hole. Not too far from there, this scientist is investigating the foundation of a house that 70 years ago was behind the dune.
There were houses in there. There were trails in there. There were little small garages, maybe some barns and other things.
What we do know about this dune is that it is a rapidly migrating dune, and that it's migrating over a previously vegetated landscape.
Take a look at this aerial picture from Mount Baldy in 1939. Watch the green dot and what happens in this picture of the same spot in 2012.
We've also established an area that we, for lack of a better term, call the box.
The box is a section of Mount Baldy where scientists are focusing their investigation. A geological survey crew from Indiana University is using ground-penetrating radar to get images of what the dune looks like inside. Then they collect samples.
Somewhat similar to you getting a CAT scan done of your brain, and if you see something in there, now you need to try to get a sample of it. So you go in and take a biopsy.
The goal is to figure out why those holes keep appearing.
That's why we're here.
Those Indiana University researchers are scheduled to be here on Mount Baldy at least another 2 weeks. Their final report is due to the Park Service in about a year, and it's up to the Park Service to decide whether Mount Baldy is safe enough to reopen, but a spokesperson said they want to let the science do the talking. Reporting from the National Lakeshore, I'm Kelly Stopsinski, WSBT Channel 22 News.
And the Mount Baldy phenomenon is an international mystery now. Kelly says writers for National Geographic and the Smithsonian attended today's media event, and we should also mention park rangers told reporters they were in a safe spot on Mount Baldy.
Now, I don't know if you noticed the same thing that I did. Oops. Let me refresh that page. I don't know if you noticed the same thing that I did, but I saw something in the background just watching through that was a little bit concerning to me, considering what's going on in the area. Let me see if I can jump up to the spot here and find it. I've got the audio off, so we'll see if yeah, here we go. Wait until the stupid wouldn't you know it, it's gonna be a trick of just getting the right spot without the stupid tape. You notice see how it is? Not even right. If I could just go one frame back, but I can't. You probably see what I'm talking about. There you go. That looks to me an awful lot like a nuclear reactor. I can't guarantee, I can't confirm. I could pull it up and look. I don't know for sure if that's what that is, but it's a little concerning considering what's going on in that particular area. So anyway, continuing on with Earth news. This is across the pond, so to speak. Massive sinkhole appears in County Durham, England. Hang on, a video is going to play. Okay. 100-foot sinkhole has appeared yards from a farmer's house in County Durham, northeast England. The hole was discovered on Thursday morning and is so deep that the bottom cannot be seen at one end. The chasm continues to grow and has prompted fears of further collapse when forecasted heavy rains arrive. John Hinsby, 71, said the hole near his home could be linked to 19th century iron or lead mining in the area, although he has not been able to find evidence of a shaft that may have collapsed. It is astonishing. If you could have heard the bangs, the crashes, rumbles when it first happened, you would understand how terrifying it was, he told the Daily Mail. My partner Sam had been walking one of our dogs when she found it on our land about 80 meters away from our house. The land is surrounded by a sheep farm, and there are two or three around at the moment. If a sheep was to fall down in that hole, then that would be the end of it. It would be the same for our two dogs. You wouldn't be able to get to them or even see them. Hinsby said small holes have appeared in the area from time to time, but none as large as the current sinkhole have ever been seen before. Some council experts came to inspect the hole yesterday, but we are not sure what can be done, he added. We are crossing our fingers it doesn't get much bigger, but it is approaching a public footpath now. Last week, a giant mile-long crack in the ground appeared in a rural part of northern Mexico, prompting fears of an earthquake in the area. And I do believe we have that in our news. So yeah, that's pretty concerning. And of course, we've had sinkholes popping up all over the earth, all over the world, and that is concerning, especially considering all the earth changes that are going on right now. It's pretty astonishing. It's kind of scary. There's a lot of changes, and it makes you wonder if this is what in the Bible is spoke of as birthing pains. It really does, because a lot of this stuff, it just hasn't been this active in previous years. It's really getting active. No, I do not have the story. I thought I did have the story about that long crack. But yeah, there's a huge crack that's in South America. Absolutely huge. So anyway, our next story, we're still on the Earth. And I promise this is the last Earth story. Hundreds of methane plumes erupting along the east coast. In an unexpected discovery, hundreds of gas plumes bubbling up from the seafloor were spotted in a sweeping survey off the U.S. Atlantic coast. Even though ocean explorers have yet to test the gas, the bubbles are almost certainly methane. Researchers report today, August 24th, in the journal Nature Geoscience. We don't know of any explanation that fits as well as methane, the lead study author Adam Skarke, you make the call, a geologist at Mississippi State University in Mississippi State. Surprising seeps. Between North Carolina's Cape Hatteras and Massachusetts, Georgia's Bank, 570 methane seeps cluster in about 8 regions, according to the sonar and video gathered by the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Hey, I said it right earlier, so just count that one right. Oceanus Explorer between 2011 and 2013. The vast majority of the seeps dot the continental slope break where the seafloor topography swoops down toward the Atlantic Ocean basin. And excuse the phone. The Oceanus Explorer used sound waves to detect the methane bubbles and map the seafloor. The technique, called multi-beam sonar, calculates the time and distance it takes for sound waves to travel from the ship to the seafloor and back. The sonar can also detect the density contrast between gas bubbles and seawater. Huge canyons etched in the shallow continental shelf also hide bubble plumes, as well as diverse ecosystems that are based on methane-loving bacteria. In 2013, researchers explored a handful of these seeps with Jason, a remotely operated vehicle, finding them teeming with crabs, fish, mussel beds. In North Fork Canyon off of the coast of Virginia, researchers from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington discovered the largest methane seep ever found in the Atlantic Ocean, and possibly all the world's oceans. Basically, I mean, I could read on, but it's rather a long story. The link is down there in the About tab. And I just wanted to bring this up. With everything else going on, with the volcanoes, with the earthquakes, with the cracks, with the sinkholes, with everything going on, I have to wonder if this has anything in relation to do with all that at the same time. Something to keep an eye on, something to keep your eyes open, ears open about, and hopefully it's not something serious. I don't know. I'm not a geologist. If anybody is, feel free to weigh in. But the other story that I have for you. A former Marine explains all the weapons of war being used by police in Ferguson. I wanted to cover this because I believe this is something that's going to be a concern for all of us. I believe that no matter where you live in this country, soon enough, this is going to become a reality. Food prices continue to rise. Water continues to dry up. A lot of bad situations. Of course, electricity prices are rising and everything else. It's only a matter of time before the people have had enough. When enough people just absolutely cannot make it, and it's already at that point, once it gets just a little bit further than what it is, I believe you're going to see mass civil unrest. I don't think that's a secret. I don't think that's far-fetched. It's definitely not a conspiracy theory. And this does a very good job of explaining exactly what toys they're going to use against the American public. And if you don't think they're going to use them against us, they used them during the Occupy Wall Street movement. They used them there in Ferguson. So this is nothing new, nothing at all. Okay, smoke hangs over the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. It's important to understand its source. Some of this understanding will require us to reassess the history of police militarization in the United States. This will mean acknowledging its origins in the aftermath of the Watts riots in 1965 and the birth of the SWAT team shortly thereafter. It will mean noting the conservative reaction to the Warren Court's civil libertarian protections in the 1950s and 60s to President Nixon's launching of the drug war at the end of that same tumultuous, I can't talk, decade. It will mean harping on President Reagan's wholehearted embrace of racial policing and mass incarceration in the 1980s. It will mean interrogating the devastating effects of the 1,208, or the 1208, I guess, program in 1990, which became the 1033 program in 1996, both of which authorized the transfer of military hardware to the domestic precincts, a practice that has only accelerated in the wake of the Battle of Seattle in 1999 and the attacks of September 11, 2001. The basic contours of this trajectory can be found in Radley Buckle's Rise of the Warrior Cop, The Militarization of America's Police Forces, copyrighted 2013. As Tamara K. Knopper, the Miriam Kaba, argue in Jacobin, however, any serious reckoning must account for the ongoing dehumanization of black people, tout court. One small way to measure the police violence against black people in Ferguson is to attend its details. It is in that spirit that I present this simple catalog. Now, let me point out there, I see it all over, whether it be social media, whether it be mainstream media, whether it be a lot of alternative media, to tell you the truth, and even right here, though this is more or less alternative media here. Look, folks, this isn't about race. It's not about race. Trust me, they don't care what color you are. And when that officer in Ferguson pulled that fully automatic weapon and pointed it directly at those individuals, in which I've showed the video, two different videos, two different viewpoints of the same incident. I've showed it right here on this show. I mean, not that it really makes a difference on color, but those were white media members. They weren't black protesters, black demonstrators, black rioters, black looters. No, they were white media members. Okay? They had cameras in their hands. Okay? And you could tell by their speech and whatnot. And, you know, from the two different viewpoints, and, you know, if you watch the videos, they were white. So we need to really stop making this about race, because they're using that to keep us from the truth and from the importance of this is about the militarization of the police. This is about police brutality, and this is about what they have in store for us. It has nothing to do with race, and it shouldn't have anything to do with race. But of course, that's a hot button topic, and they can keep us going on and on about it. So anyway, so let's check out what they have for us, huh? There is a growing chorus of military veterans who have chimed in on the absurdity of photographs like this one. Let me join the parade. What we're seeing here is a gaggle of cops wearing more elite killing gear than your average squad leader leading a foot patrol from the most hostile sands or hills of Afghanistan. They are equipped with Kevlar helmets, assault-friendly gas masks, combat gloves, and knee pads, all four of them. Woodland Marine pattern utility trousers, tactical body armor vests, about 120 to 180 rounds for each shooter. Semi-automatic pistols attached to their thighs, disposable handcuff restraints hanging from their vests, close-quarter battle receivers for their M4 carbine rifles, and advanced combat optical gun sights. In other words, they're itching for a fight, a big one. It's a well-known horror that the U.S. military greets foreign peoples in this fashion as our politicians preach freedom, democracy, and peace. It's an abomination that the police greet black communities in the States with the same trigger-happy posture, especially on the occasion of an unarmed teen's death by cop. So, getting into some of the weapons, there's the smoke grenade and smoke bomb, and it goes in. The link's down in the About tab. You can read all this if you want. But they've got stun grenades. They've got the smoke grenades. It's this is the M84 stun grenade down here. It gives you a cross section of it. Shows you what it looks like on the inside and out. This basically makes a loud noise, loud flash. It's meant to disorient you. It's meant to scare you. It's meant to be kind of a deterrent, a distraction, several things at the same time. and they are very loud. It does hurt the ears, and if you're close to one, it does have a shock wave that will it will definitely stun you. The shock wave will, if you're close enough to it. They did use stun grenades there. There's no doubt they used stun grenades there. A riot gun. Right here is a grenade launcher. I don't know how that they use those. Okay, they did use those with tear gas. Okay. Yeah, you can use these with tear gas. You can use these with fragmentation grenades. There's all types of separate. I don't want to call it warheads because I don't believe it's considered a warhead in a grenade launcher. But the head of the head of the actual projectile can do several different things. You know, different styles. There's, like I say, the tear gas, the fragmentation grenade. There's, you know, all kinds of different. Let's just hope they don't ever make one with a rubber bullet that big. That would suck. Okay, this is the Triple Chaser CS. This is a tear gas. It's a type of tear gas. And anyway, of course, as you know, tear gas will burn your eyes. It will burn your mucous membranes. It makes it very hard to breathe. It makes it, you know, if you get tear gas good, you're typically not in the mood to do a whole lot except try to get that stuff off of you and out of you. It's not a fun stuff. Thought I just heard. Oh, okay. Different subject. Sorry about that. Anyway, they've got pepper spray projectiles. These are like little rounds of bullets that they shoot at you, and they contain pepper spray in them. And it will do essentially the same thing as what the tear gas does, except this is a little more personal since it's aimed directly at you. How nice of them, huh? And then we got the infamous rubber bullet. In fact, Tim Pool and a couple other media members got struck by rubber bullets down in Ferguson. And as you've probably seen pictures of, they leave a nice big bruise and a nice welt on you. And I'm sure they don't feel very good. I see here that they are a .60 caliber size, which isn't small. Okay, that's a little over a half an inch in size, so that would hurt. That would hurt. So then they have the wooden bullet projectile as well. These I've not really seen or heard of before, but I would imagine they would probably be a little worse than the rubber bullet. I would imagine. Can't confirm that. Never been shot by either one. Don't want to be. So we've all heard of beanbag rounds. This is what a beanbag round looks like. And again, never been shot by one. Do not want to be shot by one. But apparently, this, of course, any of these could kill a human being if it was, if it hit the right spot. Apparently, KSTK and Al Jazeera America TV crew members in Ferguson, along with a good dose of tear gas, yeah, they apparently they did use these in Ferguson, and they did, and I'm not even going to say the word inadvertently, shoot media, because I don't think that was by chance, by accident, or inadvertently. I think it was directed specifically at media to get media out of the area so they could play with their toys. I think that's pretty clear, to be honest. There's a Bearcat. There's one of the vehicles that they use. Nice, huh? Need that for a bug-out vehicle. I think they should have to turn all these vehicles that they got in from the military. I think they need to give them more and then make them give them to us. You know, anybody that wants one. I mean, come on, that would be a fun bug-out vehicle, right? Well, it'd be fun. Even if we didn't have to bug out, it would be fun. Okay, you hear me talk about the LRAD a lot, the long-range acoustic device. And I'll go ahead and read that. The LRAD is a sonic weapon that is my psychological operations friends could probably discuss more intelligently. All I can tell you, the sound is so pain-inducing that in addition to being used to keep pirates at bay and break up groups of protesters, see, here we go again, or black people, It's ridiculous how they want to make everything about race, isn't it? It is wielded in order to regulate the movements of wildlife. Here's how it looks and sounds when targeting human beings. And I guess there's an audio file link there. I'm not going to play it. They can talk over the thing. It makes several sounds, so just hearing one sound won't do it. They can do siren sounds, screeching sounds. And like I said, they can talk over it. They can, and I have actually heard, not only can they make life uncomfortable for you, but I've actually heard that they can actually crank it up and blow out your eardrum. So, isn't that nice? Lovely, huh? So, and I've heard that they can actually cause death with it when they do that, when they turn it up that loud. So here's a MD helicopter. It's a huge 369E, and this is used. These are small. They can whip in and out of areas with them. Really good for surveillance. You know, of course, it's not real good for transport or nothing like that, but it's really good for surveillance. Really good to get in and out of tight spots. They're quick. They're jumpy. Don't need a lot of room to take off and land. So these are popular in types of situations like that. We all know what a K9 is, whoop whoop, and that would be what they cover. And there's a lot of toys that we haven't seen yet, that they haven't pulled out on the American people yet, like the microwave weapons. No, it's not like the one sitting on your kitchen counter. This one, they can direct a beam towards you, and it actually is very warm. They can actually cook you on the inside out, and that's not a, you know, that's not a joke like you're cooking a TV dinner or nothing. They can actually do that. They can cook you on the inside out, or they can just make life extremely uncomfortable for you. There is all kinds of weapons that you don't see, and you're not going to see on any type of website as far as a confirmation. I could probably find some of these weapons on websites, but they'd be quote-unquote conspiracy websites, even though the weapons do exist. They have all kinds of different energy weapons and everything else, but we're not going to see them yet. But I wanted to go over with you some of the weapons that were used in Ferguson and Occupy Wall Street, all over the, you know, their protests all over the country. And it's important to know what toys they have. And I would implore you to go and read up on drones, because it's very interesting the different types of sensors they have and the different abilities they have. And then on top of that, you might want to look up autonomous drones, because those are the new toys. They pretty much do everything themselves. They pretty much, with little command, they will search a certain area or whatever the case may be, and they make their own decisions. These things can detect your biorhythms. From like 10,000 feet, they can tell you what your blood pressure is, your heart rate. They can tell you if you're nervous. Okay, they can detect weapons. Not conspiracy, it's ability. They can detect weapons. The autonomous drones will indeed detect if it feels that you are a threat, and if it does feel that you are a threat, it will autonomously hellfire your butt. That's a fact. That's a fact. Do they act like this is all cutting-edge technology and that they really haven't, you know? No, they've got fleets of these things already. They've got fleets. Somewhere out there, there is a story, and it is true, and I'm not sure if it's the United States or if it's another country. It's been a little while since I've seen the story, where they have an actual ship, a totally autonomous ship that's running out there. I think it's in the Atlantic Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, and I guess it's in testing right now. But it's totally autonomous ship with totally autonomous drones and different aircraft and toys on it and all that. Supposedly it's just in testing right now. I'm sure you could Google that and find out. But anyway, I've been here for a little over an hour, and that's all the stories I have for you. And boy, that was quite a bit of news to pack in tonight. I wished I could have got a lot, you know, to a lot of other stuff that's going on Obviously, there are other things going on, especially as concerning ISIS, and I'm not even going to cover the beheading stuff. You know, there's some stuff I don't even go there because it's just like, you know, and I'm not saying beheading an American is not an important thing, but there is so much that we really don't know with that. We just don't know. We just don't know. There's a lot that sounds shady and everything else, and I like to kind of sit back and watch for a little bit and see, and I may cover it in the next couple of days. Another thing, of course, I believe it was this morning, there was a shooting on an Army base on the East Coast, and I chose not to cover that today. Again, I want to wait a day or two, try to get a little more facts about it, try to stick my ear on the ground, see what I can find out, and go from there. I, of course, don't like to just take mainstream reports and run with them, because we all know how those are. So anyway, that's what I have for you. And may I say, God bless you. May He walk with you. Be one with your spirit, and I love you all. You all have a great evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow night. Enjoy your night.